Nice to see you again. How are you? Nice to see you. Yes. Hi. Hey, I'm Angela Rosa. Hey, did you go to the show North today? I did not. Oh, so you guys are part of that. I'm a little bit new. I started in November. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Do you have a card on you? No, I don't.
Gillibrand. Nice. I don't want to stick strict orders to bring back pictures, so forgive me.
Exactly.
I tell my social media teams
Oh, please, yeah. There you go, exactly. We have Saturday. We have a big concert with Gillibrand from American Idol. So it's a college show. Yeah.
Oh, so
And then empowerment summit during the day. So we've got a bunch of people talking about some wonderful things. And then at night,
love
And then we're
So she wants small, but she doesn't want
leave it on
too small.
She wants,
That is so
like, division 3, she loves to
background noise seriously.
and what else? She wants to be a psych major.
What kind of
And
dog?
she also wants to fly.
So
And athletic, yeah, I usually want to be like
Nick, a little mic check for ABC. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, line level. So everybody got sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. You good on that? White balance, anything? You all good? Yeah. Mic check, testing 1, 2, 3. Line level feed. Does that work for you? Sound okay? Had to pot up a fair bit. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Mic check for news conference 11:30. Is that good? All right.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Come on up, Chuck. We're gonna start. Annie, Andrea, come on up. Is she speaking? Do you know? Just go where you like. Okay. Stand where you like. Senator Grassley, you first.
Let me explain why things are kind of unorganized here. Since 11, we have 3 votes in the United States Senate, which means that we got here late and we'll probably be going, some of us will be going before this is over. So please forgive us, but don't blame any of us here. Blame the people that schedule votes. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you for your interest in this. And thanks to all my colleagues for their leadership in this. We started from the premise that sexual assault is a serious crime and should be treated as a crime. One of our main goals was to get survivors the support they need so that they know that there are options and are comfortable reporting to police and to campus authorities. We didn't focus on campus discipline process because that isn't the answer. We feel that we have a balanced, bipartisan package that will shed light on the scope of the problem, support survivors, and encourage cooperation between colleges and law enforcement. We look forward to seeing action on our bill, and before this event is over, you'll be hearing from Annie Clark and Andrea Pinillo on their experience and their leadership in this area. They're co-founders of the End Rape on Campus organization. Their activism was critical to the drafting of this legislation. And now to the other senators that are leaders in this area.
Thanks, Annie.
You folks are going up here right now.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the schedule. Annie and Andrea. Yeah, please come forward.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to all the senators, this great bipartisan group, for your support. In 2007, I was sexually assaulted. I was off campus, and I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I went to my university for help, and when I did that, I was blamed. I was asked what I could have done differently in that situation to have prevented my own rape. Now, nearly 10 years later, I am receiving calls from students, from parents, from professors who are trying to help their students, and their stories sound exactly like mine. It is 2016. It's been 10 years almost since my own assault, and it's time to do something. I want to talk about 2 provisions of this bill. The first is that the Department of Education Office for Civil Rights right now has enforcement power over Title IX, which is the gender equity law. Right now, the department can do 2 things if a school is found in violation of Title IX. Currently, there are 272 open investigations with the Department of Education. They can do 2 things. Those 2 things are nuclear option, taking away all federal funding from an institution which hurts the very students that we're trying to protect, or basically nothing, a slap on the wrist and recommendations which go in a binder on a shelf. This bill would give the Department of Education sanctioning power up to 1% of the school's operating budget, which for many schools is millions of dollars. Secondly, this bill would mandate all schools, regardless of size, whether you're a small liberal arts institution, a community college, or an Ivy League, campus climate surveys so that students can report what is happening on their own campuses. Currently, it's incumbent upon the school to report crime statistics, and the incentives to keep those numbers low are very perverse. And so what we're trying to do with this is flip the incentives and make sure that students, not their institutions, are able to report what's actually happening on campus. It's not one school. It's not about my story. it's a microcosm of the larger problem. This is happening on every campus, and if we have campus climate surveys, which allow students to report what's actually happening, we will have a more accurate picture and therefore be able to enact better policy based on this data. Sexual violence is not a partisan issue, and statistically, I know that Andrea, Treshonda, and I are not the only survivors in this room. And so to everyone here, I want to say, I believe you. It's not your fault. You are not alone. And this bill is the first step to ingraining those three things in our culture. Thank you.
Well done.
I want to thank Annie Clark for what she just said, and I echo everything that she felt. And I also want to say that Annie was actually one of the first people who said, I believe you, when I was sexually assaulted in 2012 at the University of North Carolina, in which I realized that there was this constant pattern of not just covering up sexual assault, but also an indifference to preventing the problem itself. What I want to focus on actually is the concept of a confidential advisor, which this bill will propose. On many college campuses, when a student is assaulted, they are oftentimes have no idea what to do after the fact. Their close friends don't know what to do, and they don't feel ready or comfortable going to the police to talk about something so personal. This is where the confidential advisor comes in. A confidential advisor will give student survivors someone to talk to about what happened without prompting an immediate investigation by the police or school. I'm confident that if I had had a confidential advisor to talk to, I likely would have gone forward with my experience. A confidential advisor would tell you what your options are and help you make decisions for what you need or what you often find best for you. A confidential advisor would also tell you what resources are available to you, like where and how to do a rape kit. A confidential advisor would help you maintain autonomy, oftentimes something that survivors never have. Because when someone has just been violated physically, mentally, and has been betrayed again by their university, it's so important that they feel so in control of their decisions related to healing and finding justice. This is such an important part of the bill. Student survivors need a person that they can talk to so that they have the confidence to understand these crimes and also know how to proceed when they happen. Thank you again. And I want to introduce Senator Ayotte.
First of all, I'm very honored to be here with my colleagues. I very much want to thank Senators Gillibrand and McCaskill, and also Senator Grassley, and all of those who are behind me. You can say that this is certainly not a partisan issue. It transcends all party lines. And basically, we are here to say that the status quo is unacceptable, that these are crimes, these are sexual violence on our campuses is totally unacceptable, and that this bill really focuses on making sure that these crimes are properly investigated, that victims who come forward like Annie and Andrea, and we thank you for your courage, that they are fully supported with a confidential advisor. In the criminal justice system, we have individuals that are called victim advocates, and they can advise victims about what their rights are and what steps they can take, and that's why this is an important component of this bill. But we know, unfortunately, that this happens on every single campus. But yet these crimes have been investigated too often inconsistently. We need to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. And you see behind you today a strong bipartisan consensus that we need to get this bill passed, that we need to have safe campuses so that our students can go to school and focus on their education and becoming the best person that they can be. So I want to thank my colleagues, and I would like to urge the HELP Committee to take this bill up immediately, and let's get it passed.
Again, thank you all. I think you'll hear we are our voices in unison, and I want to thank Senator Gillibrand and Senator McCaskill for their leadership on this issue, but all the rest of my colleagues as well. We know that this critical legislation will prevent sexual assaults and protect students on our college and university campuses. I want to thank Annie and Andrea for stepping forward. Annie said it's been 10 years for her since her sexual assault on campus, but it's been a year when we stood at this podium at the same time. And so I think our voices are just as strong, but I think we probably need to get more and more impatient as time moves on. I would like to say that this issue, as it pervades many campuses across the country, there are some campuses that are trying to respond to this and have been very much a part of developing a more effective piece of legislation. And I would like to highlight my own university at West Virginia University, who has started the Green Dot program, which initiative which educates students on sexual misconduct and campus resources. It also has intervention training along with that for warning signs and strategies for intervention, excuse me. But also around the state, a lot of campuses, including Marshall University, have joined together on a campaign. I believe it's a national campaign. It's on us. And I guess that's back to the student responsibility. At the end of the day, if the student body has to buy into this as a concept of something that is a high priority, that's gone wrong, that is occurring, that is a crime, that needs to be stopped. And so I congratulate the campuses around the country that are beginning, because maybe these are baby steps, but these are steps in the right direction. And with this piece of legislation, with the bipartisan nature and the passion that we hear, hopefully we won't be standing here again next year. Well, we'll be signing a bill. How about that?
Yeah.
Great. We all want to speak on this important topic. And I do want to thank everybody for being here today and helping us get the word out about this phenomenal piece of legislation. Senator Gillibrand and Senator McCaskill, thank you for spearheading this effort. And the rest of the folks that are here too, you can see a bipartisan group, widespread support for this piece of legislation. And I'll explain why it's very important to me. Many years ago, when I was at Iowa State University, I volunteered for a women's crisis shelter. And in that capacity, I not only worked shelter shifts at that shelter, but I also answered the crisis hotline, which many of our Iowa State students unfortunately felt that they needed to use. So answering those calls, working with the women at the shelters, and understanding some of the issues that they had gone through was very moving for me. I carried a pager for the shelter and responded to a number of those crisis calls. We have to get through this, folks. First, we have to stop those events from taking place. But if for whatever reason we can't stop those events from taking place, we need to make sure that we have in legislation, in law, a way to follow up and educate the public. So I'm glad to be a supporter today, and I am glad to have this opportunity to be part of this important legislation. Again, this is not Republican, it's not Democrat. It's about what is right for our young men and women out there on campuses all across the United States. So again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this. I want to thank all of you for helping us get the word out, and those of you that may be survivors in this room, we want to thank you for being so courageous and coming forward and helping prevent this in other circumstances. So thank you. Let's look forward to it. And I echo that, Shelley. Let's be signing this bill very soon. Thank you.
In a polarized political environment, this bill would get 90 votes. I'm just assuming 10 people won't show up. The bottom line is we should do this year. The goal of the bill is to take a system that is incentivized to downplay the problem, because they don't want bad publicity, and incentivize people to deal with the problem. And success to me will be years from now, maybe sooner rather than later, I hope, that universities will market to parents and students, here's what we do to protect you. When that day comes is the day we've won. When this becomes the right thing to do and everybody understands this is the best way to sell your university, not just your academic setting, which is important, but the fact that you're offering students and parents a safe place to go to school where they will be fairly dealt with. That is winning, and that day is going to come sooner rather than later, and thanks to the people behind this bill, you're doing a really good thing.
God bless. I would just like to remind everybody about the beginning of this journey. Not only was it the bravery of survivors that are here today and thousands more like them that have spoken out, it was also about getting the facts. And in 2014, my office conducted a statistically valid survey, which had not been done, about what is the current baseline procedures on campuses dealing with assaults
as it relates to the federal law and the requirements of Title IX. I want to remind everyone about what we found in 2014, because I worry that there are too many voices out there saying, well, is this really a big deal? Yes, it is a very big deal. Keep in mind, every time a university knows or should have known of a sexual assault, they are required under the law to do an investigation. Over 40% of the universities and colleges in America said on our survey they had not done an investigation in 5 years. Now, no one in America believes that there have been no sexual assaults on 40% of the campuses in this country for 5 years. In addition, 21%, 1 in 5 of these universities had reported more assaults than they'd actually investigated. So they admitted that they were not following the law in terms of investigation. Only 21% of the institutions provided, 21% provided no sexual assault training. 10% didn't even have a Title IX coordinator. And then 33% of the schools provided no training to the people who were doing the adjudicating. These were kangaroo courts. We want due process. We want transparency. It's fair to everyone to make sure the people who are sitting and adjudicating how safe the campus is and whether conduct has been unsafe know what they're doing. It's fair to the survivor, and it's certainly fair to the person who has been accused. And 1 out of 5 institutions in 2014 acknowledged that their athletic departments had a role in doing these cases when an athlete was involved. And everyone understands what's wrong with that. Finally, 73% of the institutions had no protocols on how that institution interacts with law enforcement when one of these cases come forward. That's how you don't prosecute cases. You don't prosecute cases when there is no coordination or working relationship between local law enforcement and campus officials. And that's one part of this bill that I think is so essential. No one is saying that the colleges should be prosecuting rape cases. What we're saying is create the environment that is fair, transparent, trained, and that has a working relationship with law enforcement so that when that victim has the confidence come out of the shadows, we can have an effective prosecution. I'm very proud of all of the bipartisan support for this bill, and I don't want to lose the momentum we have because there aren't very many things around here that has this kind of bipartisan support. So let's get busy and get this one across the finish line. Thank you.
I'm going to be very brief, and I will tell you the reason you have all of these Democrats and Republicans standing together is we want to make sure that never again will survivors have to stand alone. That is the reason that you have the breadth of support. And I'll just make 2 other points very quickly. The first is all of us wish that this bill had been law yesterday, because campuses across this country would be safer, and having safety and education go hand in hand. But having wished that it passed yesterday, we're going to do everything we can to get it passed quickly now so that students will have a safer tomorrow. And the last point is I particularly want to commend Brenda Tracy from my home state. She was one of the first to start speaking out. She was out there with Senator Gillibrand and Senator McCaskill and all of my colleagues who were there early. So we just want you to know Oregon is on the program, particularly because of Brenda Tracy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank Senator Gillibrand, Senator McCaskill for their great leadership. I come at this as a mom of a college student, but also as a prosecutor. And I still remember those cases where we would sit in conference rooms with a victim, with their parents, and they would be students. And sometimes we would be able to say we can charge this case, but oftentimes I got the meetings where we couldn't charge the case. And we would have to explain to them, we know something very bad happened here, but we cannot bring this case right now. But it is still so important So important that you brought this case to us, because then when another case comes in, we're going to be able to use this as evidence. And oftentimes we did. But sometimes they would ask, but why is he still in school? Why is he still in school? So I just want to thank them for being able to answer that question. Yes or no, why he's still in school. There will be a process that people are using, and that will, by having a set process, it makes victims want to come forward and report. And that's what we want to do here. Thank you to both of you and everyone else sponsoring the bill.
Let me join my colleagues in thanking Senators Gillibrand and McCaskill for their persistence in this effort. Let me thank the survivors of sexual assault who have had the courage to come forward, and by doing so have not only empowered themselves about their experience, but have empowered all of us as senators to take what I think is very appropriate action. I served as the Attorney General and the United States Attorney for my state, so I want to echo the points that Senator McCaskill and Senator Klobuchar made. Too often, these cases have been mishandled from a law enforcement perspective. We know that we can do better. We actually have models for how we can do better in the domestic violence and sexual assault arena. Those were cases that were mishandled wholesale in the bad old days, but now there's a very well-run law enforcement to victim support nexus in virtually every state to make sure that law enforcement is brought in a time and in a manner that preserves the case for trial and that serves the interests of the victim of that assault. So we have not only, I think, the desire to get this done, but we have a model for improvement that can help guide us so that we no longer face those terrible situations where 2 or 3 weeks in, the victim finally decides, you know, I really want to proceed with this, and it's too late because the biological evidence is ruined, the electronic evidence is gone, and lethal cross-examination for the defense attorney has been opened up by that 2-week span of time. So we will solve this, and thank you again.
Well, I just want to follow up with what Senator Whitehouse mentioned. I too served as Attorney General in my state of Alaska. And we have a huge problem with domestic violence and sexual assault in Alaska. And when I served, we launched a campaign called the Choose Respect Strategy. And that's something that's still ongoing in Alaska. And this is really what this is ultimately about, which is looking at the culture and this problem nationally, whether it's on campus or whether it's in other places. And I think I want to applaud Senator Gillibrand for her leadership on this. And it's a really, really big issue. And it's it's an issue that I think impacts everybody. And we need to start really focusing on it. That's why I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. And again, I just think bringing attention to this issue, not only on college campuses, but nationally is very important. Thank you.
Shonda, would you like to speak? Introduce yourself. Okay. Well, excuse me. Hi, my name is Trishonda Sheffy, and I'm one of the survivors as well. I would like to say thank you to Senator Gillibrand, Senator McCaskill, and the other senators that were here for their leadership on the bill. I actually was sexually assaulted at my law school 2 years ago. My case is still underway. It's been a long process, but again, I want to thank you for your leadership. This bill definitely will fix some of the holes in the system. I also want to say that I stand here as a survivor in solidarity with other survivors, activists, and those that have not come out of the shadows. I just want you to know that we are here for you. You are not alone, and we believe you.
I just want to thank Trishonda for speaking, as well as Annie and Andrea. This is a victim-led movement, survivor-led movement. These are women and men who have gone through hell. And if you listen to any survivor stories, they will not only tell you about the worst moment of their life, a horrible, violent event that they will never forget. But unfortunately, what bears deeper and harms them even more is the disregard they faced by an institution they loved. That second betrayal, that institutional betrayal, is sometimes beyond their ability to handle it. And so we are here on behalf of survivors who have told their story, who are demanding justice, who want reform, who need reform. And I'm just so grateful that these men and women have traveled across this country, stood with other survivors, helped them file their Title IX complaints, and really spoke truth to power, not going away, not being quiet. And that takes such enormous courage, and it takes perseverance. And to come to Congress and ask, please fix this problem, do the right thing, write a bill that addresses what happened to us, make sure it doesn't happen to someone else, is exactly what was necessary. And I'm just so grateful to the three women standing behind me for their personal courage, for their strong advocacy, and their unwillingness to ever, ever give up. I now want to introduce our next speaker, Rebecca O'Connor.
Good morning. My name is Becca O'Connor. I'm the Vice President for Public Policy at RAIN, the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. And I just want to extend thanks and gratitude both to our congressional leaders here today and to the survivors behind me. Without them, as so many have said, this would not be happening, and it has to happen. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted in the United States, and those of college age are at the highest risk for this happening to them. We need those climate surveys. We need to know the scope of this problem. We need to know who's doing this, and we need to know what interventions are working and what needs to be done to close the gaps. We also need, as Senator McCaskill said so eloquently, law enforcement to be on the front lines together in partnership with campuses, and we need those MOUs fleshed out. We need that system in place before the incident happens so that we aren't scrambling to react. And I think one of the things that makes us so proud to support this legislation is that it is both proactive and responsive. The leaders that you see here today have listened to hours and hours of us talking to them about what needs to happen. And we're so grateful for that because it's really how you make sure that this isn't just, drawer lining. This is really important legislation, and we will fight for it to be passed alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Claire or any of our advocates can take questions. Go ahead. I can always speak.
Will this have an impact on military schools? There's high rates of sexual assault on military campuses. See on the right now at the Naval Academy, and I wondered if
All of the, Kirsten and I worked together on a long list of historic reforms in the UCMJ as it relates to Uniform Code of Military Justice as it relates to sexual assault. All of those reforms, based on the work we did, apply at military schools. So there is now every victim on any military campus is entitled to their own personal lawyer, unlike what we're doing in this bill, because we can't afford to provide lawyers for everyone across the country. Every person who has been assaulted in the military gets their own lawyer immediately, Special Victims Counsel, and that is true on our university campuses, our military campuses, as well as throughout the military. And my office would be happy to give you, and I'm sure Kirsten's would too, a long list of reforms that impact those schools.
And one thing Oh, Mary, you're next. Okay, let me answer this question, and then Mary's going to speak. One of the things that we put in this bill is something that's actually working for the military, which is having a survey. So they have a survey every 2 years. They can document and estimate how many actual sexual assaults are taking place. And that's been able to inform a lot of the reforms that Claire and I have worked on. So we actually added that in this bill because we think it's one of the most important tools that the military has that the private sector actually doesn't have.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
I got to go vote. If there's any other question, I'll take it real quickly. Yeah. That's my paper, sorry.
Yeah. What are you being told about why this bill hasn't moved? It's been here for a year.
I think it's partially that they are anxious to do the reauthorization of higher education in the Health Committee, in the Health and Labor Pensions Committee, Health Education, Labor and Pensions Committee. They want to do the reauth of higher education, and the idea was this would get folded in. And then there has been an inability to get consensus on the reauthorization of higher education and floor time for that. So we're working to try to see if part of the reauth could occur and we could put important parts of this bill in that legislation and move it forward. So this is really a committee decision at this point, and that's why it's so important that this is so bipartisan, because we're working with both Patty Murray and Lamar Alexander to try to make that happen. Well, we hope it's going forward. This is our way of saying we're still here. We're not going anywhere. We still want this to happen. We are still advocating that this happen. We all should not sit down and wait for next year. We need to get busy and get this work done, and then we think this is really important work that needs to be done this year. This. Do you want to go?
No, go take questions. No.
All right, I'll cover for her. All right.
Filibuster.
All right, I'm covering for her, I guess. So this is the sort of momentum I think you're absolutely looking for. This conversation was not even possible 5 or 6 years ago, much less when I was in college. It's now happening thanks to courageous advocacy of students like Annie and Andrea and Trishanda. And I just want to say, as professional educators, as the union that represents 1.6 million pre-K through 12 educators, higher education faculty, nurses and healthcare professionals, as well as public employees, we stand with the senators moving this. We stand with the victims. We believe you. We will believe you in our schools and on our campuses and in our healthcare clinics when we see you. We understand this is an equity issue. For students to succeed academically, they need to feel safe and supported on campus. Many of our own members, like the graduate employees at the University of Oregon, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and Michigan State University are fighting alongside their undergraduate allies to make campuses more welcoming and safe. We also know that addressing this issue will take expanding education about safe relationships and consent to younger students. And I applaud Senators McCaskill, Gillibrand, and others for their work to ensure that we are teaching students these valuable lessons before it's too late. Let's build momentum to pass the Bipartisan Campus Accountability and Safety Act so that this fall we can welcome a whole new class of students to campuses across the United States safely. Thanks so much.
We'll have Senator Gillibrand back in about 30 seconds, and we may get 1 or 2 other senators as this vote's concluding. So if you can just bear with us for half a minute. He's usually very fast.
She's so great. I'm just gonna stand here awkwardly. Live streaming. I was like, I don't want to look like all in the camera. Yeah, you know what happens. So are you guys leaving soon? Are you guys leaving? We're leaving tomorrow until Tuesday. And then we're done. And then you'll be around for a while. Yeah. Okay, so thank God. Then I can try and see you. This April's the worst. Yeah, April's the worst. And then it's like totally fine. Anybody? We're sticking around though. They're back. Who's back? Just gonna chill here in the spotlight. I talked to Site, and it's not. It's like, so, yeah, absolutely. Representations. I know. And part of this bill. What did they say? I'm like, well, you know, it isn't deep. Yeah. Steve, this is like, oh, Steve that didn't think about how that was this harsh. I know, yeah. Bathroom police. Yeah, it's insane. The whole personhood stuff is like really tricky. Yeah, eventually. That was fast.
I know.
Yeah. Those other right shoes to run in.
Thank you, ladies. That was great. This is fast.
Welcome back.
Any other questions?
There's one.
No, in fact, I meant to say this, but in New York, a number of our schools have already endorsed the bill. SUNY, which is the largest college system in the country, 500,000 students, the State University of New York, has already endorsed the bill, and 2 of our private colleges have also endorsed the bill. So that is not the issue. The issue is floor time, and the issue is getting an opportunity to get a vote. And so, as was answered well by Senator McCaskill, we've been trying to include it in the higher ed bill. And so we want to make sure that we are included, regardless of what form that bill takes. If it's a narrow bill or a larger bill, we want this to be included. And if it doesn't get included for any reason, we hope to have an up or down vote on the floor. And that's what we are asking of our leadership. I am very optimistic.
Hi, my name is Shelby with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. In recent months, we've seen a lot, over 80 students go to court arguing that they had not been treated fairly
Right.
in the process. My question is, what type of protections do you all plan on adding to the bill to ensure both alleged victims and accused students are treated fairly? We at least have one case of 2 African-American students alleging racism played a role.
Mhm.
And Professor Janet Haley has written extensively at Harvard University about the role that racism and other bias may play. What protections are in this bill to ensure that that process is actually legit and fair for all sides?
Well, there's 2 aspects to the bill that would address that. One is basic training for all those who adjudicate these cases. Right now, it's a kangaroo court. You know, it's hit or miss depending what school you're at, whether the people who review these cases have actually any relevant training or sufficient relevant training. And so we mandate that, and that should address that issue. But we should also note that the bill, we put in a lot of parallels so that what any service or counsel or advice that's offered to the survivor is also offered to the accused. And so we have parallel treatment in all settings. And so if one has counsel, the other can have counsel. You can make sure that it is treated fairly on both sides. And that was an important component of the bill that we revised with the help of Senator Grassley and with specifically in response to people who are concerned about defendants' rights. Go ahead.
In the event the higher education bill is not able to move this year beyond just a vote, do you think that you would have objection to moving forward? Do you have any of your colleagues say that this is something that they would just want to stop on principle?
No, we hope that we are included in the higher ed bill, but as I said, if we aren't, we hope for an up or down vote. And because of this strong bipartisan support, I'm very optimistic we will get our opportunity to have a vote on this bill this year.
The only challenge, I think, in that scenario is that there would be some members that would say this needs to go through the committee, which, you know, we do a lot of things here where it just magically appears on the floor without having gone through committee. I don't know why this bill would have to go through that process when so many other bills haven't, if we can't get it to move on the higher ed off sometime before August. We would try in September, or certainly in the lame duck if we don't get it through by August.
Anything else? No, thank you all for
Thanks,
coming.
everybody.
Thank you.
Hugs, hugs. Hugs, hugs.
I met with the NCAA yesterday.
Did you?
Yes.